Good morning, y'all, and welcome to the Falcons Podcast. It is Wednesday morning at 9 a.m., and we go live on YouTube and Facebook every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Monday and Wednesday is the Falcons Podcast, and Friday we do the Coast to Coast Football Podcast, where we take a look at all the big stories, draft, all the stuff around the NFL. But today, one of the big stories is the Atlanta Falcons, so we'll cover some of those things as well. We are going to talk about the Arthur Blank, Rich McKay press conference and get your feelings on that. That's one of the reasons we go live, is because I like to hear from you and what you want to talk about. And we have the live chat for that going on. We'll talk about some of the top candidates. We can talk draft if we get into it. We'll see what is on your mind today. But I know a lot of people came out of that press conference frustrated, angry, et cetera, et cetera. It certainly didn't make them feel good about the direction of the Atlanta Falcons. And I want to get into some of those things, including Terry Fontenot, Rich McKay, and Arthur Blank. But first, let's say hello to some folks that have come in. Actually, the first thing I want to do is say thank you for all of the new viewers that have come to this channel, come to these channels, and come to the Falcons Podcast. We had our most watched episode on Monday, which is great. So we appreciate you. Lots of new subscribers. If you haven't subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. So I want to say thank you for taking this trip with us. We certainly appreciate you doing that. Guys like Red Swarm, who have been with us for a long time, says, "Good morning, Scott." Mike Lombardi has some very interesting comments on Arthur Blank going big game hunting. Mike Lombardi. I used to do a little work with Mike Lombardi at NFL Network. But Mike Lombardi basically came out and said Terry Fontenot not being at the meeting, the press conference, and Rich McKay being there instead meant that Terry Fontenot was gone. He was not leading this head coaching search, that he was gone. And they're going after somebody who will, when they mean big game, isn't a first-year head coach, someone who will come in and want personnel. Think of Sean Payton last year. Sean Payton was hired by the Walton Penner Group at the Denver Broncos, and he was immediately put in charge and over player personnel development, all that type of stuff, including being basically the boss of the general manager. Big game hunting means that. Big game hunting means Bill Belichick. New England hasn't done anything. Are they in negotiations with the Atlanta Falcons? Atlanta Falcons haven't so much as had a request for a head coaching interview leak to the press, which is kind of strange. So we'll get into that. How this affects Terry Fontenot, I guess that's one of the first things I want to get into. There was a lot of folks, and I don't know, that came out of that press conference angry about Terry Fontenot and his role. And I don't know if that's because people were surprised by the fact, because he has the title of general manager. They thought that he was historically what general managers are, which is basically in charge of football operations, which includes coaches, hiring, player personnel, all that type of stuff. When in reality, the general manager in this day and age, in a lot of places, is basically director of player personnel. That's what Terry Fontenot is. Terry Fontenot was never, and I picked this up in the press conference when they talked about, we hired Terry Fontenot and he was part of the interview process for hiring the head coach. I don't think I had a senior moment, but Terry Fontenot's announcement for being hired came after Arthur Smith had been hired. The head coach was in place beforehand. And if they had hired Terry Fontenot and he was part of the interview process but didn't announce it for league reasons, doesn't that kind of come into tampering and breaking some rules? So that piqued my interest a little bit. But regardless, Terry Fontenot was not heavily involved in the choosing of Arthur Smith. They're on an org chart, and we've explained this before, but you watched Arthur Blank and Rich McKay say the exact same thing. On a traditional org chart, they are on the same level. They report to Rich McKay, who in this instance is basically the general manager without player personnel and day-to-day operations. That's what he's got his head coach for. That's what he's got his director of player personnel for. You can call Terry Fontenot the general manager and say, I saw people say, oh, he's been neutered, so to speak. No, he wasn't, though. This has been his job. He didn't have, and they said this is one of the few times I believe some of the things they said, when coaches and general managers and owners start getting up there and talking, you have to filter some of that through with what actually is true and what isn't. But his job, his role hasn't diminished, at least not yet, because he wasn't Arthur Smith's boss. He didn't hire Arthur Smith. He may have been talked to about, okay, we want to elevate your position, but that could still happen. We want to give you some more control over this, this, and this. That could still happen. But until you know who your head coach is going to be, that can't happen. That can't happen. You can't come in and say, okay, we're going to bring in Bill Belichick and give him control over player personnel and basically have the general manager report into the head coach, where really this is a director of football operations. Think of the head coach in this instance is much more like a college football coach, much more like Nick Saban. Nick Saban is president, general manager, and head coach of the Alabama Crimson Tide. Now, is he the one out there doing the scouting and doing the recruiting? No, he's brought in to help close a guy. Is he negotiating NILs and all that kind of? No, he's absolutely not. Is he in charge of day-to-day operations of the football team and head coach? Absolutely. But he is also in charge of who is working in that building up to the athletic director. And, frankly, Nick Saban may have more power than him too. But Sean Payton is that guy with the Denver Broncos. Bill Belichick, unfortunately for the New England Patriots, is that guy and has worked his way up into that position with New England. Now, I have a big problem with head coaches who are in this position in the NFL. It's very, very different than college. You're dealing with professionals. You're dealing with contracts. I'm not recruiting. I'm having to, I've said about recruiting in Alabama. So, Scott, what do you know? You guys aren't coaches, man. This isn't an evaluation contest. This isn't about who the best evaluator is. I can go to a football game and cover my eyes and point to the guy that Alabama and Georgia are recruiting because they sound better than everybody else. That's how much different they are. It's like, if you're not getting guys that an idiot like me can pick out, then you're going to get beat by the guys that are getting guys that an idiot like me can pick out. It ain't like that in pro. Pro's very different. The margins are very small. The difference between the 25th pick in the NFL draft and the 75th pick in the NFL draft can be minuscule, can be absolutely minuscule. So it's a very different, and on top of that, for me, it's a conflict of interest. I don't want the same guy who is having to coach these guys to be the same guy who's negotiating contracts, in charge of all that stuff. I want that completely separate. So as far as Terry Fontenot goes, Terry Fontenot's role hasn't changed. He is basically, we see that general manager title, and a lot of people have lost their minds. This isn't about Terry Fontenot. This is about, and this is why you're mad, Falcons fans. This is about Arthur Blank and Rich McKay. This is about, is this the same old, same old? Is this the same thing again and again? You've gone 20 years with a Super Bowl appearance, yep. But now we're working on 10 years with no playoff appearances, and you're going to do the same thing? The same guys are going to be in charge of hiring? That's why you're mad, Falcons fans, and I get that. I want Terry Fontenot to have more power. I want Terry Fontenot to be more involved in who's deciding. That's why you're upset. Don't be upset that Terry Fontenot has been handcuffed, kneecapped. He's on his way out. I don't think he is. I don't think he is. Terry Fontenot is basically in the same spot he's been for the last 3 years. Does he deserve better than that? Maybe. That's a different discussion. I want to say hello to some folks that have come in with some financial support for the show. Thank you, Keith Johnson, coming in with a super sticker. Good to see you again. Appreciate the support. And Rose Stackson, good to see you too. I think we missed you on Monday, so hopefully you caught the show. You were able to catch a show. But he says Mike Vrabel and Bill Belichick share the same agent advisor. They had to give Terry the GM title because taking him for the Saints to do the job would be a lateral move. And that makes sense. He was assistant general manager there. He has the general manager title here. That is true. That's a very good point. In order to have permission to even interview Terry Fontenot, it has to be for an elevated role. That said, Ro, the general manager job has changed. It is changing. What is the general manager's role? What is Terry Fontenot's job? Terry Fontenot's job, like I said, think of it more as the general manager in this day and age in the NFL is the director of player personnel. That includes salary cap management. That includes contracts. That includes scouting, both pro and college. All of those type of things. What it doesn't mean to me is who's in charge of administrative personnel and coaching. That's where the separation has come over the last several years. That's happened in a lot of places now. I got really annoyed. This is why I don't listen to a lot of talk radio, because when I start hearing nonsense or I start hearing just bold-faced lies, CYA, cover your ass type of statements, I get angry. I want to jump in and interject. It's probably why I have to work on my own now. I don't work well with others that way. Just the defensiveness. One of the first things they talked about was the job that Arthur Smith and Terry Fontenot have done based on the salary cap situation that they were in, which is true. I've sung their praises for that too. The job they did in 21 and 22 to win 7 games was really, for me, overachieving. To be able to go to Rich McKay and Arthur Blank and say, listen, we've got to make this move with our quarterback and eat this dead cap hit and do what we can, to have the balls to do that, to rip the Band-Aid off and set yourself up for 2023 with $100 million in cap space, another high pick, and be ready to compete in 2023. I thought they did a really, really good job of that. And to hear Rich McKay stand there and say, these guys did a good job of salary cap management in a position that wasn't because of mismanagement from guys that we had in the past. BS. Come on, man. How am I supposed to take you seriously if you can't even sit there and admit to failures of the past beyond the super obvious one in Bobby Petrino? How am I supposed to take you seriously? How are you supposed to win the trust of the fans when you sit there and say that kind of cover your ass BS? You can't. I can't take you serious. And that's why Falcons fans are upset this week. That's why they came out of that press conference saying, this is the same old thing. I got a guy up there who can't acknowledge the fact that Thomas Dimitroff absolutely ruined this team, put him in the ground, set him back 4 years because of salary cap mismanagement. It's obvious. Well, this isn't a rebuild. Remember that fun joy? Oh, yeah, it was. It actually was a rebuild. They just didn't want to call it. No kidding. Really, I had no idea. Thank you for enlightening us on that. We had no clue it was a rebuild. We're not stupid. Stop talking to us like we're stupid. All right. The only person I've said good morning to so far was Red Swarm. You got me fired up already this morning. I didn't think I was going to be that fired up, but here we go. John Harrell says, good morning, Scott. Good morning to you as well. Michael Ranquillo, he says, good morning, y'all. He says, good morning, Scott, on the Falcons podcast. Good morning, Michael. My Swanker comes in. He says, what is our odds if we sign Bill Belichick and he brings with him Bailey Zapp or Matt Jones as our quarterback? And if that happens, what does that mean for our draft? I'll tell you the odds of Bill Belichick coming in. They seem still remote to me. I know my friend, he posted, he sent me like one of these betting sites that had the top odds guys were Jim Harbaugh and Bill Belichick were even. I'm like, Belichick might actually happen just because Arthur Blank, hell, Bill Belichick's a young guy to Arthur Blank. He's in his 70s. He wants to take one more shot. Why not get this guy? And we can discuss this too as we get to it. I don't want Bill Belichick for this reason, this reason, this reason. Okay, we can get to that. But Jim Harbaugh is even money. Is him and Bill Belichick were the two favorites for landing in Atlanta? Whew. If I was a betting man, that's where I'd be betting that it's not going to be Jim Harbaugh. It was like plus 300, so I'd have to lay down $300 to make 100. That seems like easy money for me, y'all. To answer that question, what are the odds he brings with him Bailey Zapp or Matt Jones? Zero. Half the reason Bill Belichick is having trouble up there is because of Bailey Zapp and Matt Jones. Matt Jones was a different guy. Mac Jones. Zero. They would have to go after a veteran quarterback because Bill Belichick isn't there to develop a rookie. He needs somebody that can come in. And this is a 2-year project, Bill, if you come in and do this, to come in and try and win with this roster right away. Now with competent quarterback play, and I did like the fact that Arthur Blank basically parroted what I've been saying all year, which is quarterback play, not the quarterback person or position, but the play, which is scheme, coaching, play calling, etc., which have all failed, is what held this team back. he's going to need somebody that he can plug in and count on the quarterback. And then who do you come in, bring in as offensive? You want Bill Belichick and Josh McDaniels here in Atlanta for 2 years? Maybe. They go out and spend on Kirk Cousins money to come in and do that guy and take a shot. Does that sound like a Super Bowl team? No. Does this sound like a Super Bowl team in the next 2 years regardless? No. Would 11-6 and an NFC South title and maybe making an NFC championship game? Possibly. You look around at the teams right now, and there's 3 that look really good. Philly is kind of falling off a little bit, but you look at Detroit, Dallas, and San Francisco, there's room up there for a 4th team. Who's it going to be? Is it going to be Philly? Could it be the Falcons? Could be. It could be. This is a good roster. They've got some money. They have to solve head coach. They have to solve the quarterback position. Those aren't easy. Oh, that's all, Scott. That's all. Zach Powers saying good morning to you as well. Brian Dunn says good morning, Scott. John Harrell says hit him with some wisdom. Hit us with some wisdom. Give us some names. Number 1 for me is still Ben Johnson up at Detroit, the Detroit Lions offensive coordinator. He has already been requested for several interviews. What are there, 6 openings now? He's going to be 1 or 2 on just about every single list. So you're going to need Arthur Blank, who is very well respected around the NFL. You're going to need this roster to help sell itself. The salary cap situation, which isn't bad, to help be a sales pitch for a guy to come in. And yes, you're going to have a lot of say in personnel. You're going to have to do some of that work with Terry Fontenot and do this. There's going to have to be a recruiting pitch, a sales pitch for this to go and get someone like that. Bobby Slowick, Houston Texans. That's somebody I'm really interested in. Is it Frank Smith? Frank Smith, Mike McDaniel's second in command down in Miami. I'm very interested there. So those are some guys there. I would bring in Mike Vrabel for an interview. Y'all might say that's nuts. We already tried the Tennessee thing, but Vrabel is a head coach, and he's got some experience, and he had some success up there, and has built a team, and has invested in the quarterback position. As crazy as that sounds, I would consider going well. So lots of possibilities there. Curtis Case, let me pause this side real quick. Curtis Case, good to see you. He says, good morning, Scott. Good morning to you as well. Padre 0920. And says, good morning. Good morning to you. Appreciate you being here today. And Captain Case says, that press conference was BS. Yes, it was. I kind of blew it off on Monday. Just like, oh God, yappity, yappity, yap. But as I went through it again today, knowing that I was going to have to talk to y'all, you've seen my reaction already. I've gotten fired up about it. Again, this isn't about Terry Fontenot. Terry Fontenot's role hasn't changed. Terry Fontenot, I think, unless they bring in somebody that says, I want to bring in my own general manager, very similar to Sean Payton at Denver. I was very surprised that their general manager was still around and is still around. Terry Fontenot is safe. I think he's done a good job. Now, if they haven't pushed back, and if he didn't push back on the quarterback position, that was one of the first questions I had. So let's talk about Terry Fontenot real quick. And there's plenty of hits. Let's talk about the fireable type of mistakes. 1, what were they offered for that number 4 pick in 2021 when they took Kyle Pitts? Now, it certainly wasn't going to be what the Dolphins. I'm sorry. Wasn't the Dolphins? Who did they trade? It was the Dolphins that San Francisco made that pick with to give 3 picks to move up and take Trey Lance. Good Lord. That's why you don't want head coaches in charge of personnel. That was that would have been a dream scenario for this rebuilding Atlanta Falcons team to be able to get 3 first-round picks for the number 4 spot. As good as they may have thought Kyle Pitts was, what were you offered? Because frankly, I would have been tempted to take the package that the Bears sent the Giants for the rights to draft Justin Fields. If you didn't want Justin Fields, fine. Man, trade back. That was a good draft. Get back into the low teens. And that was one for me. The quarterback position overall is a big one for sure. But yes, the press conference was it was frustrating because it just felt like the same old Falcons. Am I wrong? Falcons fam, am I wrong on that? Is that why a lot of you are mad? That's why I would be. There's the old man. Good to see you, Dad. He says, thanks for keeping us informed. Yeah, he texts me. He says, someone says there's a coach already hired. I'm like, I don't know about that one. That sounds strange. Now, may have been a coach, but not the coach. The head coach isn't on there. Albert Molina says, good morning, Scott. Regardless of coach, the quarterback to me is a bigger question. This team was really a quarterback away. Yeah, how good could that quarterback have been? Yes. Does this team, if Justin Fields is the quarterback for this team, is this team a playoff team? Yes, it is. It is. Now, that's not a hot take. That's not some huge, bold statement, because this team was a game away from making the playoffs with atrocious quarterback play. Justin Fields would have made this team better. People poo-pooing the idea of Kirk Cousins. Y'all, if a healthy Kirk Cousins on this team this year is a 12-5 team. Kirk Cousins was playing really well. Do you try and go out and get Kirk Cousins? Now, the age and the injury scare me flat out. Absolutely. I have serious reservations about a mid-30s quarterback coming off an Achilles injury. I've got the same reservations for Aaron Rodgers, who is a more accomplished quarterback, a little bit older, but a more accomplished quarterback than Kirk Cousins in New York. That scares the hell out of me. I'm a huge fan of Aaron Rodgers and his play, and the injury and his age terrify me. Absolutely. So, yes, the head coaching position needs to be solved. The quarterback position has to be addressed in a big way this offseason. And if you go and you make a swing at a quarterback and it ends up being Desmond Ridder anyway, fine, so be it. Let him earn it. Let him go out there and play and earn it, because right now he hasn't earned it. Taylor Heineke hasn't earned it. I'd rather have Gardner Minshew come down. And at the beginning of the season, I would have said I would have rather had Taylor Heineke than Gardner Minshew, but switch places and put Taylor Heineke up in Indianapolis with Shane Steichen and Gardner Minshew down in Atlanta with Arthur Smith, you still have problems. You still have problems. So it is going to take it's going to take those both. It's going to take both. Keith Johnson says, good morning, Scott. Looking forward to change. Hope we move up and get a quarterback. Keith, I don't know about this. I just don't know. If Chicago stays put at 1, the only quarterback that's going to be available that you would want to move up for, you don't even have to move up for him, is Justin Fields. Because you've got 1, 2, and 3, Chicago, Washington, New England. If Chicago goes quarterback, okay, there's one that's off the board. And that's really the only if that I'll even consider. New England ain't coming out of the 2 spot or 2 and 3. Those guys aren't coming out. I forget who's which. I think Washington's 2nd, New England's 3rd. They're not coming out of those 2 and 3 spots. They need quarterbacks. They need quarterbacks in a big way. They need a reset. They need to start over and build fresh. You do that with your quarterback. They ain't coming out of that spot. The only way that they come out is, let's say they swap picks with Chicago. Chicago says, all right, we've decided to keep Justin Fields. This number 1 pick's up for grabs. Okay? So the Atlanta Falcons, they get on the phone and they call up Chicago and say, we want to move up to the number 1 pick. We'll send you our number 8, a 2025, and a 2026. First rounders, 3 first rounders. We'll send you all those, and you can have our number 8 right now. And they'll say, okay, yeah, that sounds good. Let me get back to you. They get on the phone. Let me get this straight so I don't keep mixing it up. I'm almost positive Washington is number 2. But let me just say for sure. Yeah, Washington's number 2. They get on the phone with Washington and say, listen, I know y'all really like Caleb Williams. Atlanta's offering me 3 first rounders and they're number 8 to come up to 1. Can you beat it? And they're like, no, we're good with either Drake May or Caleb Williams. That's fine. So you say, okay, well, let's get on the horn. We're going to call New England. New England's going to make that call and say, we'll move back to 3. What do you make us so we won't come all the way back to 8? We'd rather be at 3 with you. They say, okay, you can have our 3rd, a first rounder, and we'll send you a 2nd, a conditional 3rd. Okay, let's do that. So they move down to 3 and take Marvin Harrison. Quarterbacks still go 1, 2, 3. Maybe quarterbacks still go 1 and 2. And Chicago comes out of this with a bleep ton of first-round picks and Marvin Harrison Jr. Okay, so now you're sitting there at Arizona. Maybe you could make a deal with Arizona. Maybe. The Chargers would be okay, but the Giants, but there's Tennessee sitting right there. Minnesota's going to be in it. Denver's going to be in it. So only way that this could even be possible is if Chicago decides to trade that pick, and you're just not going to be able to get up and get one of those top three. Now you can start talking about, well, I really like Michael Penix Jr. Not for trade. I don't like him top 10, not with the injury history. JJ McCarthy is okay if he decides to come out. I don't think he's actually declared yet. Bo Nix in the top 10. No, thank you. So do you get a bridge guy? Do you go get Russell Wilson and maybe take a shot in the second and third round? Russell Wilson's going to be dirt cheap. Broncos are paying his contract this year. Do you go get a guy like him for a year and draft a day two guy and see how that pans out? And if it blows up in your face, you're sitting in position for 2025 for another top 5 pick? Maybe. I just think it's going to be really, really hard. Evan comes in, he says, why does a coach always have to report to the GM? That's not how it always needs to be. But Bill Belichick would be a step back from Arthur Smith. I disagree with that on Belichick. Now, they've fallen off, and to me, part of that is because Bill Belichick has been the general manager. This roster isn't nearly what it was in the heyday of Tom Brady. Well, he's nothing without Tom Brady. Well, he was 11-5 with Matt Castle when Tom Brady was out for the year. He can still coach, but obviously having the greatest quarterback ever helps with free agency and all those type of things. Covering up in close games, you're gonna probably win them. But Bill Belichick is still an upgrade on Arthur Smith. Come on, y'all. Let's be serious about this. Do I want to just have to be back in the spot in 2 years because he's old? No, not really. He's not my first choice, and I'm sure as hell not trading a draft pick for him. New England, if you want to get rid of Belichick, you get rid of Belichick. We'll sit back and wait. And that might be one of the things why we haven't heard too much about them. Like requesting interviews and the like, where everybody else it's already leaking out there. And frankly, some teams have already conducted their first interviews. A lot of them have been internal. The Chargers interviewed Giff Smith, interim head coach. They interviewed Kellen Moore. I saw that, who was their offensive coordinator. But the Falcons said there's no timetable for this. They need to get it right. Okay, well, get it right. That absolutely is more important. Rudy, good to see you. Says, good morning, Scott. Good morning to you as well. Want to scroll down here. Michael Todd says, good morning, Falcons fans. Good morning. Raymond Collins, he's over on YouTube. Good to see you. Nando, good morning, Scott. Does Bill Belichick make a great hire for these young group of players? So let's just say I'm not quite positive. Does he make a great hire for this group? It's young on offense. It's not necessarily young on defense. There's a veteran group on defense, and Bill Belichick is a defensive guy. Who does he bring with him as offensive coordinator if he were to come in? Does he bring Josh McDaniels again, who needs yet another reclamation project? I'm not a fan of Josh McDaniels at all, especially as head coach. Can he work under Bill Belichick as an offensive coordinator? He's got a pretty good track record there. Even without Tom Brady, they've been more successful with McDaniels there. Is that what you want here in Atlanta? I know it's not what you want, but again, it's kind of like the quarterback position. Who can you get? For me, I think, tell me if I'm wrong here, Falcons fan, and I'll scroll down, I'll see it eventually. If you said, okay, Ben Johnson's coming, offensive coordinator from Detroit Lions, that'd be all right, wouldn't it? We'd all be pretty happy about that one. There'd be a lot of mixed reactions on Bill Belichick, and I'd think of it almost like I would if Kirk Cousins was a quarterback. All right, that's a step up. It's risky because of the age, and is he past it? But it's going to be short term, and we're going to be right back here again in 2 years. But can we have a fun 2 years while doing it? Maybe. Certainly not where I want to be. Roger Cook says, afternoon, everyone. Falcons becoming a joke on top of a tragedy. It's funny you say that. I was 25 in 1998 after having 10 straight years of losing seasons in the 80s as a kid. And I remember thinking in 1998, basically the only goal as a Falcons fan when I was 25 years old, the only goal of a Falcons fan is just not be embarrassed that we were Falcons fans. We made it 364 days that year in 1998. Thank you, Eugene Robinson, for going out and getting arrested for soliciting a prostitute the night before the Super Bowl and helping to get blown out. Thank you. We made it 364 days. We won't talk 2016. That would be ironic, though. Bill Belichick comes. Doesn't he owe us one? Doesn't he owe us one here in Atlanta? Maybe. Leon, good to see you. Glad you're here. Good morning. We hire a coach yet? Leon, haven't even interviewed a coach yet. So far away from that. So far away from that one. Tony Sanders says we can forget about Eric Bieniemy. He's expected to return to Kansas City next year. That's odd. Does he come in as a true offensive coordinator for Andy Reid, where he gets to call plays? Is Andy Reid going to give that up? Otherwise, Eric Bieniemy needs to go to a place where he is calling plays for sure. Head coach in waiting, that doesn't work. Sterling Wood says Bill hasn't been the same since Tom left the building. Well, that's a tough one to overcome. You very rarely go from Joe Montana to Steve Young. That takes some time to be able to do something like that. And Sean says trade up and get Jaden Daniels. I talked about that one a little bit, just how hard that is going to be to go up and get it. You're going to need to be in the top 3 or 4 to get Jaden Daniels. And I think, frankly, it's going to be 1, 2, 3. I think the Bears end up moving Justin Fields, taking Caleb Williams or Drake May. Caleb Williams or Drake May goes number 2, and then number 3 goes Jaden Daniels. It's going to cost you 3 first-round picks to get anybody even pick up the phone, and no one's picking up the phone except from anybody but Chicago if you're Washington or New England. Those guys are going quarterback at 2 and 3, and they might be the candidates to move up to make sure nobody jumps them to get the guy that they want. Gordon, good to see you. He says, I caught you live again. Well, I appreciate you being here. Thank you. Over on Facebook, I'm glad you're here. Addison, coming in with support for the show. Thank you, my friend. That's twice this week. It certainly means a lot. Keeps these lights on and bright. Keeps my forehead nice and shiny. So thank you for coming in with the support. Let me see here. Lawrence Rivera, good to see you. He says, what's up, Scott? Big Dog. Good to see you as well. Let me see here. I want to, Michael Todd says, according to Blank's comments, there will not be a decision on free agent signing or trade until head coach is hired. Michael, that won't be a problem. You'd like to have this done by the time the Senior Bowl comes around, which still isn't really a problem because Terry Fontenot and his staff they're in place for scouting and player personnel. You can't make any of these moves until the middle of March anyway. So you could make trades, but nobody's making off-season trades really. It's free agency. You can sign your own free agents to extensions and you can sign your own free agents because technically they're still under contract until March. So you can negotiate with your own players that are scheduled to become free agents. But Michael, you can't sign anybody new until middle of March anyway. And I promise you this will not last until the middle of March. I think it's March 13th. I'll be shocked if they don't have somebody. Let me take that back. Because of the calendar and the league year and all this kind of stuff, let's say they're going after somebody that makes the Super Bowl. Shoot, that could be the second week of February. This won't go past February 15th. So it won't go. So you don't really have to worry too much about that. Rusty Moore says Rich McKay is the GM, Terry is a pawn. Shake my head. I just think it's mistitled, by general manager. General manager, Terry Fontenot is director of pro player personnel. He's not a pawn. I disagree with that statement. I just think people are hung up on what the old idea of a general manager is. In a lot of cases, it's also president football ops, but not always anymore. Terry Fontenot has his hands all over free agency, all over the NFL draft. And that hasn't changed in 3 years. All over the salary cap. I think he's done a great job. Now, does he have to go to the owner and say, hey, I need $30 million of signing bonus so I can go out and get Jesse Bates, and I need $25 million to go out and sign David Onyemata for a signing bonus. I want to give up these picks. Every general manager has to do that. They still report to somebody before you make any kind of crazy move, but he's not a pawn. He's just not what people normally think of as a general manager. Again, put it in your brain. Terry Fontenot, director of pro player personnel, or even just player personnel. That's his job. That's what he does. Oblivion Empire, good to see you. Thank you for being here. And Black Mario 618, I don't like McKay and Blank making coaching decisions. That's where it's sticking out for a lot of people right now. Is it feels like the same old, and I get that. I get that for sure. Michael Rankio, the Falcons had 3 straight 8th picks in the NFL draft. I joked on Twitter. Actually, I made the joke with y'all on Monday. They're renaming the number 8 pick the FedEx Arthur Smith Memorial pick. 3 straight at number 8. This is going to be 4 straight picks in the top 10. Where are the Detroit Lions? The Detroit Lions have I don't want to give Dan Campbell Coach of the Year because they have, a good roster. It's the Detroit Lions, man. And no offense to the Detroit Lions, because we here in Atlanta have lived like the Detroit Lions. We've always had a lot of top draft picks. What do you do with them? How do you become somebody else? Can you stack these guys up? I mean, by the time you have your fourth top 10 pick, your first top 10 pick is going to be in the 4th year of his contract, and you're making decisions on whether or not you're going to be able to keep him. Time to start winning, man. John Brothers, good to see you. He says, I mostly just lurk, but I'm here. Lauren says, I need a bigger cup of coffee. Yeah, this one's about empty, but it is harder to sit here and slug coffee while I'm going solo on this. I don't like y'all to have those big pauses, but if I don't, I'll go hoarse. Rudy is definitely against Belichick on this one. And as Joe agrees with what I said earlier, if Bill comes, he's not bringing those quarterbacks with him. No way. Absolutely not. Bryce Gillespie has a good question. Good morning, Falcons. Are there any wide receivers in free agency we'd love to pursue? Yes, there are. I think T. Higgins is going to be a free agent as well. Let me bring up the free agent wide receivers. There's going to be a lot of them. Calvin Ridley's scheduled to be a free agent. No, thank you. I saw Rise Up Ritter on Twitter saying we should we should give him an offer just to see if Jacksonville make Jacksonville match it. Well, it'd be too late by then. He would need to sign an extension, and he is still under contract. Again, these guys aren't free agents just yet. So the idea that he could sign a new contract before hitting free agency is still on the table, which would elevate the Falcons' 3rd-round pick they got from Jacksonville to a 2nd-rounder. Some of the free agent wide receivers out there, and again, I don't know that you have to overpay for this kind of stuff, but how about Mike Evans? He's a pretty good player. He's too similar to Drake London. That's a bad thing. You've got 1 wide receiver under contract in 2024. One. Mike Evans, he's 30 years old, still uber productive. Let me see. One of the guys that I have had my eyes on for a while, I can sort by yards, total yards, because these are the top guys, and he's number 2. He's just, if I'm looking on Spot Rack, he's really low because he was just a 2nd-round pick, but it's Michael Pittman, Indianapolis Colts. He is scheduled to be a free agent. They might try and franchise him, but if they do, how about offering DeForest Buckner some money? DeForest Buckner is a defensive lineman, one of 3 guys with Myles Garrett and Chris Jones who have at least 7 sacks in the last 6 seasons. DeForest Buckner on that defensive line. Okay, I'm interested. Gabe Davis, big game. Gabe Davis is just 25 years old, coming off 750. He's an unrestricted free agent, 750 yards. Tyler Boyd in Cincinnati and T. Higgins are both scheduled to be unrestricted free agents. Tyler Boyd's a little expensive. T. Higgins is about to be. DJ Chark, I'm not sure how interested I am there. But there will be a lot of guys out there that you will be interested in. And then the draft, obviously. Again, you're going to have to come up with 4 wide receivers, 4 of them at least, to make this team here. So lots of guys on there. Atlanta Dog says, good morning, Scott. If we bring in Belichick, I see us getting Fields if he's available. If he's not available, then Chicago is going to come out of this thing with 6 first-round draft picks if they make that trade, considering they've already gotten 2. They've gotten last year's, and then they got another one from Carolina. If they take that one and spin it into 3 more, oh my goodness, it'd be fun to be. I mean, this is a general manager's dream. It's also scary because he's got to hit. He's got to start hitting. You got to start winning some games in Chicago. But they finished the year pretty strong. They finished the year pretty strong. John Brothers, Annie Agar, I guess that's a person. Hunter, I'm not sure who that is, but a media personality maybe. So Arthur Smith is a great pick for FedEx since they also don't deliver on Sundays. Yeah, you could go, work with Chick-fil-A too. Lots of good jokes in there. Arthur Smith did some good things, but I'll say it again. Their very first decision may have ended up costing him the final decision. To not go quarterback in the first draft and go Kyle Pitts instead of Justin Fields may have cost him his job. Now, I hear you. There's people out there that just want to point to Justin Fields' record with a bad Chicago Bears team who is in the process of rebuilding too, who's a year behind where the Atlanta Falcons are, and finished as a team that looks like they're ready to take the step forward this year. Why would you want Justin Fields? All right, listen to me. Justin Fields is an upgrade over what the Falcons have had the last 2 years. If you disagree, fine. I disagree. We may never agree. He's an upgrade over Marcus Mariota. He's an upgrade over Taylor Heinicke. He's an upgrade over Desmond Ridder. I don't think that's a hot take. A little bit of an upgrade, especially with Arthur Smith and the read options that he likes to run, with his ability to run and the explosive plays in this offense, would have put the Falcons in the playoffs. Okay, let's say you disagree. Okay? They would have been worse off with Justin Fields. Okay, fine. Are they any better off with Kyle Pitts right now? And if they had taken a shot on the quarterback and missed with Justin Fields, which made a lot of sense, he may have gotten the benefit of the doubt and said, okay, you went with your quarterback here. It didn't work out. Let's reboot and try again because everything else looks good. He may have gotten another chance. The fact that they looked at Desmond Ridder and Desmond Ridder was so bad, and you go back and forth with him and Taylor Heinicke and decide we're good there, cost you your job. You do not get the benefit of the doubt anymore. So if I'm Arthur Smith, I would have been much better off taking Justin Fields. Now, again, for the last 3 years, I'd still have a job. I believe Arthur Smith would still be employed if they had made that hire. Now, we can still talk. Justin Fields isn't going to be very good. Why are the Bears getting rid of him? Okay. Kyle Pitts may have been that the story still needs to be written. He's 23 years old. For the long term, may have been the better pick. That history still needs to be written. Right now, no. Right now, Justin Fields would have been a better pick for the Atlanta Falcons in 2021 than Kyle Pitts. And if you don't believe me, ask Arthur Smith right now what he's doing. Bobby says, Bill Belichick here in Atlanta, not a chance, bub. Michael, no chance of Kirby Smart coming. He may do his due diligence and listen. Oh, Kirby Smart is just the only way I would see him leaving Georgia is if he just says, I have had enough of the goat rodeo that is NIL and the transfer portal, and I want some guys under contract. Otherwise, he's in a perfect spot, man. Georgia was his dream job, and he's killing it. And I know you don't really mean this, like, go Kirby Smart, but he's built to be a college coach. He connects really well with his players and they're recruiting the kids. He's a teacher. I mean, he is a hands-on coach. Kirby is in a perfect spot, and I couldn't be happier for him because he truly is one of the good guys in college football. Let me see here. Zach Power says the Rich McKay position seems strange to me. Is he team president? General manager is probably staying, so just answer the phones. Rich McKay is a team president, CEO of the Atlanta Falcons. Basically, all big decisions have to go through him. And then he would go to Arthur Blank and say, Arthur, I need $50 million in a signing bonus. So team president, he is what you may think of as the general manager of the past, except he's not doing as much. He's delegating the personnel department to his director of player personnel, Terry Fontenot. So if that's how it makes people feel better, well, actually it wouldn't, because you don't want Rich McKay. That's the problem, Scott. We don't want Rich McKay. We don't want Rich McKay as the general manager. I get that. I do. Oh, speaking of which, sitting there listening to those two defend their track record after firing a coach after 6 years, I've lost count. of not making the playoffs was maddening. Tell me I'm wrong, Falcons fans. Sitting up there and listening saying we've made good hires, the process has been good, when you've been irrelevant for the better part of the last decade was maddening. That was as frustrating as anything. Miguel has a name that we have talked about. Now, this is a former Georgia guy that could be really interesting, Todd Monken. First year up in Baltimore, he's got an MVP quarterback. Got a pretty good quarterback in Lamar Jackson for sure. But I think he's done some good things with Lamar Jackson and some good things in that offense to help keep him safe from himself, keep him healthy, and let him be more of a passer and design route concepts. Because when you think about the Baltimore Ravens, who on that offense scares you that isn't named Lamar Jackson? They've got some guys, but they don't have the San Francisco 49ers type of weapons that you think of with Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk. They got some good players, but Monken has done a really, really good job, and I would absolutely put him on the I would put him on the list of coaching interviews if I was out there. Ryan Adonis says, I know for a fact that Rich McKay is getting fired. Arthur Blank said it in the press conference. I missed that one. That one's a little strange to me. Let me grab a gulp of coffee real quick. Chris Walker, good to see you, says, I'm not happy with McKay. I don't believe he's earned his pay. He needs to score a touchdown instead of a broken play for 5 yards. McKay is, he's been there 20 years now, and they talk about the hires. And, if you lived through the hires previously until they got to Dan Reeves, they've done okay. Jim Mora wasn't bad. Mike Smith was good. Dan Quinn was good. Tailed off at the end. Arthur Smith, I still don't think Arthur Smith was a bad hire. I think he made a couple of fatal mistakes, specifically with the quarterback position and building the team. The draft strategy doomed them. Well, how come it didn't doom Terry Fontenot then? Because Terry Fontenot has also done some really good things. How much were they in charge? And this is why I think Terry Fontenot still has a job. Jesse Bates, David Onyemata, Calais Campbell, Caden Ellis. The free agent side of things have all been hits. The draft has been iffy. There's been some hits. There's been some misses. That 2021 draft is looking really, really poor. We can talk about the potential of Kyle Pitts all you want, but at number 4, considering the players that you didn't get, looks like a bad pick. The number 2 pick that went next, Richie Grant. You take a safety in the second round pick. You want Javon Holland in the second round. You don't want Richie Grant. Richie Grant has been poor. Third, top of the third round. Anybody remember Jalen Mayfield? That was a bad draft. That was a bad draft. Want to come back over here. Corey Carter coming in with a super chat. Appreciate it. The only quarterback for us in 2024 is Jameis Winston. The guy always wants to score touchdowns. Seriously, though, Blank is clueless and people are starting to see it. I didn't realize that until I guess it was after. I'm not sure if I talked about it on Monday when I realized that was Jameis Winston that was on the field. I didn't realize that when it happened. I think we may have talked about that on Monday, but he was a free agent. And he said, when he was asked about it, he's like, you disagree with me, you disagree with the team. Because this was a team decision to go against Dennis Allen saying kneel the ball out. Jameis was right. How do you know that, Scott? Man, watch the play. I don't have to be inside the locker room to know the entire team. When the entire offensive line jumps up and throws their hands in the air when Williams scores, that it was a team decision. I'm no body language expert. That was pretty obvious. Jameis Winston is a free agent. Watch out for Denver. Watch out for Denver to pick up the phone and give Jameis Winston a call. He'll still have a job in this league. I don't know if he'll ever have a job in New Orleans again. Well, I don't know if he'll ever have a job for Dennis Allen again. Let me rephrase. He basically will never have to buy another drink in New Orleans for as long as he lives. They may build him a statue for that one in New Orleans. Rusty Moore coming in with a super. Appreciate you, dude. He says, is it time for Grady and the Falcons to part ways? Oh, the problem with that one is he's coming off an injury. Um, if I look at Grady Jarrett, Grady Jarrett is phenomenal, and I wouldn't mind at all to see him get his flowers for a team and how good he actually is for a team that's competing for championships. His 2024 numbers, his dead cap hit is down to 8. He's got a cap hit of 20, so his dead cap hit is just 8. His base salary is really high. So basically, if you traded him and had somebody pick up $8 million, his dead cap hit would just about go away. The problem is, are you making that move for just salary cap reasons? Because I don't know what you could get back for him at this stage. He's going to be 32 years old, 31 years old, coming off of a knee injury. That's bad. I don't want to sell low on Grady Jarrett. Is it time for them to part ways? I'd want him in the locker room if I was a new coach coming in. I'd want his leadership there. I think you can trust him to buy in, because Grady Jarrett, you meet with your veterans when you go into a place like this, and Grady Jarrett will say, "Dude, I just want to win. I just want to win. I'll work, get these guys in line. We're glad you're here. Been through this before. Might be here when you're gone, but I just want to win." You want him there. If he was healthy coming off of this year that he was having, because he's a wrecker, man. I don't have to tell Falcons fans how good he is. And you could get a second round pick for him too, maybe. Yeah, then, but I don't think coming off an injury, you're going to be able to get what you want for him. And I don't like that. I'd like Grady Jarrett to have options. If Grady Jarrett says to me, "I want to move on," I understand. I thank you, Grady. We're going to put your jersey up in the rafters before too long. I understand why you want to move on. Without a doubt. So Rusty, appreciate the comment. I'm going to scroll down. I've missed a lot of the good mornings here. I know, because it's really busy. There's a lot of eyeballs on us today. And I like to say hello to as many people as I can. It's a little tougher when I'm by myself. But Adam says, "Good morning, Scott. Love your work. The presser was infuriating. McKay is such a lying weasel. I have very little faith in him and Blank doing the right thing and hiring the right head coach." And, I think their process is improving. When you go back and look at Jim Mora Jr. was kind of a surprise. And then to hire Bobby Petrino. Mike Smith, again, was a good hire. Dan Quinn was a good hire. Arthur Smith, I'll stay by it. I don't think he was a bad hire. I just think he made a couple of fatal mistakes. I really do. And then once the offense you start losing the offense, it was over for them. Ryan Adonis says, Grady is a great player, has given his life for this team. AJ Terrell, on the other hand, I don't have any problem with AJ Terrell. AJ Terrell, one of the things when I'll look at, one of the phrases I use in scouting was, they say you can't measure someone's heart. Can't measure someone's heart. Well, that's true. But by God, I can tell if someone's got one or not. Watch, AJ Terrell is still so physical supporting the run that I know he's still out there playing his ass off. Is he a top 3 corner in the NFL? Maybe not. Is he still really good? Is he worth $20 million a year? No. Is he going to get $20 million a year now? Probably not. But I have no problems with AJ Terrell. I really don't. And I hope he is a Falcons with a contract that's not detrimental to the team. I hope he ends up staying with the Falcons for a long time. Keith, good to see you, Keith. He says, "I miss the Jerry Glanville days." The Man in Black, that was when they changed. They said it was coincidental, but that was when they changed from the red to the black uniforms. Stanley Atkins says, "We lack the ability to scout and attract and develop generational players. Look at the draft since 2016 and players taken that are future Hall of Fames, and then look at us." Attract, it hasn't always been a great free agent destination, but generational players don't change that often in their prime. I would say for the Atlanta Falcons, Jesse Bates is, and frankly, the generational gets thrown around so much, it's ridiculous. How many? Well, we have 2 generational picks in the last 3 years, right? And Kyle Pitts and Bijan Robinson, generational. Man, Barry Sanders is generational. I would even say Derrick Henry. It's to me, generational meant once in a generation. Now there's 15 generational guys every year. You keep using that word. I don't think it means what you think it means. I've started putting that under people's comments too. But Jesse Bates, did Jesse Bates just have the best season of an Atlanta Falcons safety ever? It's arguable. Give him 2 more years at this level, and he will be the best Atlanta Falcons safety to ever put on the uniform. 2 more seasons. He plays 3 years at this level, and he's going to be the best Falcon safety ever. It's not a high bar. He was attracted as a free agent. Calais Campbell came in as a free agent. David Onyemata came in as a free agent. Caden Ellis came in as a free agent. This is still an attractive place to play. Develop. I think scouting is more important than developing at this level, making sure you get it right. I don't know how much development actually goes on at the NFL level, to be perfectly honest with you. Let me see. Troy comes in. He says, Eric Bieniemy, I can't spell his last name. Almost. There's one. It's actually IE and then IE again. That's how I remember that, Troy, because I can't spell his name either. I used to do it copy and paste. That's how I'd spell his name. Out of Washington, Michael Penix Jr. without offense, could it be? I don't know. That would be very risky. It would be high risk. Again, you've got Eric Bieniemy, who's offensive coordinator at Washington, called plays for the very first time with a limited quarterback situation they were limited by the quarterback play also. They were starting a 5th rounder in Sam Powell. Sam Powell came out with a gunslinger mentality and threw for a bunch of yards, but they didn't score a bunch of points. They're out. He was not the quarterback coach for Patrick Mahomes, and he was not calling plays while he was with Kansas City. He was a coordinator, I guess. That's what he did. He helped coordinate the offense so Andy Reid could run it. He didn't run the offense. He wasn't an offensive coordinator in what we think of, going back to the general manager type of discussion we had, and what we think of as what general managers have been in the past. He was not an offensive coordinator in Kansas City like we thought of the past. He wasn't even Dave Ragone in Atlanta, who was the quarterback's offensive coordinator and quarterback's coach in Atlanta. He wasn't even Dave Ragone. Okay, so that bothers me a little bit. And then Penix he's busted both shoulders and had 2 ACL surgeries. And then we can talk about his limitations. Would he be good enough healthy that you'd want him in the top 10 anyway? There are a lot of question marks there for me for Michael Penix, and certainly at 8, for goodness sakes. If the Denver Broncos called me at 12 and said, we want to offer you a second, a 3rd, and our number 12 to go up to number 8 because they want Michael Penix, sold. I would do that. I would do that. So I'm not sold on that one for sure. Sean Carter says, good morning. Love the show. Sean, thank you so much for the support. I really appreciate it. It means a lot when y'all come in, and it's humbling. It really is. Sit here and Eric or Nick will be back next week. It won't be just me. I'm interested to get his take after he's been away. He's on paternity leave. Had his baby on the 4th, so it's almost been a week already. Goes fast. But I appreciate you. It's humbling that y'all want to hang out here with me. J Map says, I'd rather have Fields. I'd rather have Justin Fields than Michael Penix. I'd rather have Jaden Daniels than Justin Fields. But I think that one is going to be a little out of reach. WCG says, Bobby Petrino wasn't a bad coaching hire. He was an extremely poor coaching hire because of poor character, but a top offensive mind. College coach. Yeah, he's a great offensive coordinator. When he was hired, what I said about him was, we're about to find out if Michael Vick can hit open receivers, because Petrino will scheme them open. Because that was a big knock on Michael Vick at the time. He can't hit open guys. He's inaccurate. We never got the chance to find out because the character issues. Saying Bobby Petrino was a poor character, water's wet. That one goes way beyond that one. Is Daniels that good? Yeah, Jay Daniels is that good. He is that good. Ian, what about Vrabel for head coach? I'm on the phone. I am. I think he did a great job in Tennessee. Sometimes you miss your shot. It wears out your welcome. It's time. Sometimes it's just time for a change. Vrabel, would that be enough of a change? I think he'd be pretty much plug and play. It'd be interesting. We hired the guy who worked for Vrabel. Now we're going to hire Vrabel. That would be interesting to me. So I would put him on the list. I would absolutely have that interview. Bob says, make Jerry Gray the head coach, keep Ryan Nielsen, draft Jaden Daniels, new offensive coordinator, problem solved. Could do worse. Getting a new offensive coordinator will not be easy, and getting Jaden Daniels will be even harder. That will be even harder. It'd be nice if he just fell to number 8. I don't expect that to happen, and I expect it to be incredibly expensive to move up. So I think it's going to cost you 3 first-round picks to get Jaden Daniels. That's my educated guess at this point, that it's going to cost you 3 first-round picks. Would he be worth it if he hits? Absolutely. And I'll go back to Bryce Young. Bryce Young, they gave up DJ Moore, a number 1 wide receiver. They gave up the number 1 overall pick that's going to be incredibly valuable this year. And last year, a pick that became Jalen Carter. Okay. Once the Bears moved it around, that pick ended up being Jalen Carter. So you gave up Jalen Carter, DJ Moore, and Caleb Williams for Bryce Young. Oh, yeah. I mean, that sucks. But if Bryce Young, if you hit on your number 1 quarterback, okay. It's not, I don't worry about what I missed out on. I got my quarterback. I'm good. The problem right now is Bryce Young, what was he, sacked 65 times this year? It was hard to get a real read on Bryce Young, and he didn't look very good. That's what's killing you. 3 first-round draft picks for a quarterback will not kill you. Missing on that is going to hurt unless you're already got a loaded roster and then you get lucky with Mr. Irrelevant. But I'm not going to try and build my team based on the San Francisco model of I'll give away 3 first-round draft picks and I'm going to draft a quarterback at 252 and think I'm going to be the number 1 seed. That's an exception. On that note, I sure don't want Bill O'Brien in Atlanta. Yeah, you and me both. I think we're on that one. Dirty Bird says, please don't sign Belichick. He's way down on my list. I think probably my first 2 off the top of my head, Detroit's offensive coordinator, Ben Johnson. And then my number 2 pick right now would be Bobby Slowick, the offensive coordinator with the Houston Texans. Has a good development quarterback and then get a young quarterback. Do I expect – this is a good roster. This is a better roster than what Houston had going into the season, and Houston's in the playoffs. Do I expect a rookie head coach and a rookie quarterback to then turn around and go to the playoffs? I'm not going to say no. I'm not going to say yes because they did it, because it's the first time it's ever been done. But this team's in a little bit of a different situation. This roster isn't that – this roster – Arthur Smith was fired because he underachieved, not because his roster was so bad. So you could come into this team with this schedule and be a playoff team with a rookie quarterback. Absolutely, you could. All right, I'm gonna make some guys here real quick. Make some guys mad. We gave up the farm for Julio. I think Julio was worth it. I don't. Y'all have heard me say this before. I don't. Julio was awesome. Julio was maybe the greatest Atlanta Falcons player of all time when you factor in talent and longevity. Julio Jones was drafted the spring after the Atlanta Falcons went 13-3 and gave up 48 points to the Green Bay Packers as the number 1 seed with home field advantage all the way through the playoffs, a bevy of offensive weapons, and you didn't even make the Packers punt. Didn't even make them punt. And your response to that was to trade away 5 picks, including 2 first-rounders, for a wide receiver. And then we wonder why the Falcons couldn't ever put a game away or stop anybody when it mattered. 2 years later, they're in the NFC Championship game. Julio goes for about 200 yards and a touchdown, has the game of his life. San Francisco runs the ball right down the throats and wins the game. Couldn't stop anybody when it mattered. Cameron Jordan in that same draft. Cam, the hated New Orleans Saints, would have been a better pick by himself for this Atlanta Falcons team than Julio Jones was, and you won't convince me otherwise. As good, and I will say, Julio Jones is arguably the best Atlanta Falcons player of all time. Most talented is still Deion Sanders. Best Atlanta Falcons player of all time. Should go up in the Hall of Fame. He'll have his name up in the rafters too with Atlanta. That's not what this team needed. That team needed defensive playmakers / offensive line. And it wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth it. As good as Julio was, the reason why the Falcons don't get more shtick for that pick is because they traded into a dysfunctional Cleveland Browns team. Go back. I've gone through and done a draft on guys I knew. I was director of scouting at the time. You could have had Cam Jordan and Cam Ward-Hayward with first round picks that you gave up for Julio Jones. Cam Jordan and Cam Ward-Hayward, we're talking, it wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth it on that note. That said, guys, I'm going to get out of here. It went fast. God, I feel like we still have so much more to talk about. And Sean, I think you already came in here. Sean Carr says, good morning, love the show. And again, thank you for your support. We've gone 65 minutes, and I feel like we've got a ton more to talk about. You know what that means? That means it's going to be a hell of an offseason with the Falcons podcast, and I appreciate you spending time with me. Want to say thank you again to those of you who came in to support the show, and those of you, especially my Super Chat and Facebook stars, superstars, Keith Johnson, Roe, Addison, John, Corey Carter, Rusty Moore, and Sean Carter. Sean's my son's name in good Italian, good Irish spelling too. Keith Brugman, Lawrence, Michael over on Facebook and stuff. Love seeing y'all. Chris Walker, all of the guys that have been here with me since the beginning. But I'm going to get out of here. I will be back on Friday. We'll probably talk some coaches again. I'm going to talk some NFL playoffs. We'll do that on Friday and some of the top matchups coming in. We can talk some quarterbacks and some draft as well. If I see a super chat, I'm going to answer that one. And then we'll be back on Monday to talk Atlanta Falcons on the Falcons podcast. It feels like it's already towards the end of the week to me, so I want to tell y'all to have a good weekend, but it's just hump day. So I want y'all to have a good rest of your week. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see y'all next time.